debt ceiling, it's really sort of the story of the week. The two sides, the Republicans and Joe Biden, Republicans control the House, which really controls the purse strings. And then you've got Joe Biden. They are negotiating, and they apparently, according to the New York Times, who cited people familiar with the situation. I love that. They always cite people familiar with the situation, right? The two sides are moving towards a deal to raise the debt limit for 2 years, which would push the issue past the 2024 election. So if they manage in doing that, raising the debt limit for 2 years, it will not be one of the issues debated in the election in 2024, which could be good, could be bad, depending on how you look at it. They're raising that debt limit and imposing spending limits on discretionary spending in other areas apart from military and veterans. The deal would apparently cancel out 10 billion of the 80 billion that they were going to give to the IRS. And that money would then be shifted to other non-defense spending so that the Democrats don't have to make such big cuts in those other areas. And under this deal, the idea would be that non-defense spending would stay the same in 2024 as it is in 2023 and then grow by 1% in 2025, which, if inflation is still a thing, technically growth of 1% would actually be a decrease, because if inflation is at 2%, you're actually negative 1%, or if inflation is higher, you're going to have negative growth, even though in dollar terms it's growing by 1%. And from the New York Times, negotiators were at loggerheads over work requirements for social safety net programs and for permitting an overhaul of domestic energy and gas projects. So those are the two areas where there's a little bit of a stalemate going on, because the Republicans want people to work, 20 hours a week in order to get food stamps and a few other programs.
They want people to actually put in time to receive benefits. But it's interesting, the social safety network requirements, like, what exactly does that mean? It sounds like the new Green Deal, where you're like, what are you trying to slide into this mess?
Social safety net, that's things such as food stamps, other federal programs, benefits, basically. Not, I don't think unemployment insurance, because that's done by the states, I think, but the other federal programs, I guess that's what they're talking about.
I'd be curious to find out exactly what kind of funding was going into those. And it's interesting that they're raising the debt limit, but not establishing a fiscal budget.
I think, that whole social safety net thing, like, my solution for that would be that I wouldn't give unemployment insurance. I would just offer people a job, like picking up trash or whatever. And I think these people would find another job pretty quickly. You know what I
I,
mean?
I mean, trash men make good money, actually.
Cleaning the sewers, or cleaning toilets in government buildings or whatever. I would give people, I say, look, we'll provide you a job. We guarantee you a job so you can meet your needs, but you're going to want to find another job. I think people would find another job pretty quickly.
That's a solution. Yeah,
Times Square Alliance or something, isn't it?
yeah. All right. Those are all contract government things. I think the debt ceiling problem is just going to keep perpetuating itself, and we're going to end up in a place where we're constantly increasing. I mean, at the end of the day, someone should just come along and say, "Well, we'll always have the debt ceiling raised forever, no matter what.
Right.
So just raise it to whatever's necessary for the next 6 months."
Ultimately, if they want to ever solve this problem, they have to significantly cut spending. They have to cut spending by like $1 trillion a year, which means they have to wipe out like an entire set of programs, like literally cancel food stamps or cancel Medicaid or something like that. Like, if they want to bring the budget into balance.
They can reduce the federal government in size by 1/3, and we could go back to when there was no income tax, because I don't know if you know this, but income tax was only supposed to be a temporary solution.
Right. Yeah.
Well, now it's year 110 where we've been under income tax as a nation. This temporary solution, mind you, from Woodrow Wilson.
And we've got record revenues right now as well. That's also the thing. So there's no problem with tax revenue. That was their argument for the 87,000 new IRS agents. They need to make sure we're getting enough revenue, but our revenue is actually at record highs. They just do need to cut spending. It's like a drug. As a country, we're hooked on this drug of spending, and we just, when they say, "Oh, we'll reduce the budget by 1% or whatever," it needs to be reduced, like you said, by like 30%. Like, they need to, and everyone's scared of doing it because they think if they cut things, make noticeable cuts, they won't be elected the next time. So it's kind of like, That's a flaw of democracy in a way.
Just put term limits on Congress and the Senate.
Yeah, because then at the end of their term, they can be like, all right, we'll do all the unpopular things now. We're going out anyway.
Yeah,
Yeah,
right. They never have to worry about being reelected, and so
right.
they're actually trying to do things that are effective, rather than try to be reelected to their seats. And that's the biggest problem with our government right now, is that it's no longer a democracy or a republic. Our country is a corporatocracy. The corporations control it. So they're lobbying for who's behind everybody, who's behind Ron DeSantis, who's behind Nancy Pelosi, who's behind. They get money from somewhere for their campaigns. That money is accumulated through some corporate funding. Now those people have special interests that control our country. They all have their own personal interests in trying to get money out of our
Right.
system, right? So the
Yeah.
best thing we can do as a country is to make every purchase transparent. Make it transparent. We bought an AR-15 for $872. We bought 300,000 rounds of 5.56 for our AR for X amount of dollars.
But then when they just say, we bought a toilet seat for $15,000, and then
Well,
you're like, how
the,
does it cost that much? And then they're like,
exactly.
oh, it's a special fireproof toilet seat for use on high altitude aircraft. And you're like, yeah.
Right. And that's when you send the actual high altitude fireproof toilet seat made out of carbon fiber for $2,000. And you go, here's the most expensive toilet seat on the planet, plus it's plated with gold.
Yeah.
Like,
So the remaining 13 grand goes to the black projects, huh?
yeah, right.
I'm less worried about the military stuff, though. I'm more worried about just like the waste in just giving people money for not doing anything. Like literally, you know, there's so many government programs you could just apply to and they just give you money. The general account of the treasury now, because we are talking about the debt ceiling, it dipped below 49 billion on Wednesday, which is actually pretty low. Here's the chart. So it's actually the lowest it's been quite a long time. And they estimate it may even dip below 30 billion at the beginning of June, which is kind of its minimum operating level. That's like the United States' checking account, right? The general account of the country that they use to pay all the, fund the government. Now that the debt ceiling is probably going to be raised, Treasury, they're planning a sale of, I think it's 170 billion worth of T-bills at the beginning of June, and they're going to do that immediately. So it does look like we're going to get a resolution. I doubt the US will default, but it is a little bit of a nail-biting journey.
Yeah, there's a place to make money here. And that's how I look at the debt ceiling, is when they're coming to a solution, the markets rally.
Right.
When they're
Like today.
having, it's had to rally today. Last week on Friday, when there was no deal, the markets drop.